For a meeting of Concord City Council. I will just mention that we have devices available to help those who have difficulty hearing. These devices use a transmitter and headphones and allow for an individual to personally adjust the volume for their needs. A device can be obtained at the Concord TV booth, which is the box that's back there at the back of the City Council chambers, should you need it. So, would you please stand with me and say the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councillor Brown. Here. Mayor Champlin.
Here.
Councillor Fennessy.
Present.
Councillor Foote.
Present.
Councillor Grady Sexton.
Here.
Councillor Horn.
Here.
Councillor Keach.
Here.
Councillor Kretovic. Here. Councillor Kurtz.
Here.
Councillor McLaughlin.
Here.
Councillor McNamara.
Here.
Councillor Schlosser.
Here.
Councillor Schultz.
Here.
Councillor Sekou.
Present.
And Councillor Todd.
Here.
Thank you very much. I will entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes, minutes of our May 13th, 2024 meeting.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. All right. The yeses have it. Thank you very much. We have, let me see. We have two items have been pulled from the consent calendar by Councilor Brown, items 21 and items 25. We also have one suspense item this evening. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar with
So
the
moved.
exceptions we've mentioned.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Councilor Brown?
Yes, I'm going to recuse myself from items 17, 22 through 24.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to
Councilor
recuse
Fennessy.
myself from item 20 because I believe my law firm was involved in that proceeding
Okay.
earlier.
Thank you. And Councilor Brown, do you want to mention?
Yes, I have a family member who's employed by the city.
Thank you very much. Councilor Grady?
I was going to ask if
All
there
right,
was.
that's fine. Thank you very much. All right. All those in favor of the consent calendar, or the motion as presented, rather, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? Ayes have it. The consent calendar is adopted. This moves us to the public hearing portion of our meeting. Madam City Clerk, item 28A.
It's a resolution appropriating the sum of $11,956.94 in the Police Department Ballistic Vest Replacement Program project for the purchase of ballistic vests and accepting the sum of $11,956.94 in unmatched grant funds.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager.
Nothing to add, Your Honor.
All right, may I have a motion? I'm sorry, we're not in there. We'll open the public hearing. I apologize. Any questions for the city manager? None. I'll declare the the public hearing open. Is there anyone who'd like to testify on item 28A? All right, seeing none, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Madam City Clerk, item 28B.
It's a resolution appropriating the sum of $38,292.10 for management of tax deeded properties and accepting the sum of $38,292.10 from the sale of tax deeded properties for this purpose.
Thank you very much. Mr. City Manager.
Your Honor, members of the council, as you can see, you have a one-page report which has the notations for sales price, tax costs and interest, the dollars that are owed to the prior owners, and the balance. That's what we're talking about, is the balance here. And as reported, the allowable proceeds of $38,292.10 were retained by the city. With the council approval, these proceeds will be added to the account of care and management of tax deeded property. So what you do with that is any property that you've taken over the years, you maintain those properties, cutting the grass, making sure everything's properly maintained. And then eventually, many times you end up selling those properties. You want to make sure, sometimes these are in residential neighborhoods, so you want to make sure they're at least kept in a safe condition.
Thank you. Any questions for the city manager? Councilor Brown.
Yes. Do we know if any of the residents of these properties that were seized Did they seek assistance?
Could ask Mr. LeBrun. Oh, you get to introduce Chelsea? That's good.
Welcome, Mr. LeBrun.
Thank you very
And
much.
welcome, I guess, Chelsea.
And Chelsea. Mr. Mayor, members of the council.
That's Ms.
Yes.
Thank you.
I would like to introduce Chelsea Mikulski, who is our acting tax collector. As you may or may not know, our previous tax collector resigned about a month and a half ago, and she moved on to Nashua. And Chelsea has been the deputy tax collector for several years, and she is now the acting tax collector. And see if she likes the job, and if she does, then we'll talk a little bit more. So,
Welcome.
Thank you.
I believe Chelsea can answer the question a little bit better than I can.
Yes, so the tax deed process started several months before this, and most of them did apply for some kind of assistance. The problem is that a lot of them did not live in the homes that were up for tax deed, and therefore that made them ineligible for some of the assistance. But we did have several that did get assistance and got approved for funding, so they were off the deed list.
Follow up?
Yes, thank you. So you're saying that, I'm going to ask about Lake Street, because that's in my ward. The owner did not live in that home?
did
This is
not.
like a second home for them?
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other questions? All right, thank you, Mr. LeBrun. Thank you, Ms. Mikulski.
Thank you.
All right. I'll now open the public hearing. Mr. Schweiker, welcome.
Good evening, mayors, members of the city council, city manager, and city clerk. I'm Roy Schweiker, and I am opposed to this for a couple of reasons. Number one, I wonder if it isn't costing the city too much to keep track of all these minor funds. If we couldn't just, have fewer funds and less accounting and fewer city staff and fewer computers and whatnot. And the second thing is I'm wondering, as an example, at the last budget meeting, the city voted to take the property taxes from the city portion of the property taxes from 100 homes and spend it in a fund for festivities. But because it was in a special fund, it wasn't immediately apparent that, this money is the equivalent of the city portion of the tax rate of 100 homes. And I think that, the more of these little funds we have, the more we forget this is real money. So I don't think we should have as many special funds. The other thing is, I'm wondering whether the city should keep this money at all or should return it, most of it, to the property owners. Because, as you may know, the tax deed process essentially involves kicking people while they're down. And where most of this money comes from is in addition to paying the back taxes and 14% interest, they also have to pay a 10% of the assessed value penalty. And I'm not quite sure why that should be. So, I'd like to say, well, why don't we just give this back to these poor individuals who, I think it's safe to call them poor individuals if they can't afford their taxes. The other thing I'd like to mention is there are only 3 properties listed in this thing. And if you read an article in the Concord Monitor a few months ago, the city actually took 4 properties by tax deed at that time. One of the properties did not sell for as much as the back taxes and interest. So presumably it's not generating the, extra money to be seized by the city. And I wondered why that was. Now, once again, I emailed a spreadsheet as testimony for the hearing tonight. I don't know how many of you people actually got it.
All of us, sir.
Okay, but you can use that, put in your own numbers as you want to. But basically, if you look at the first part of it, at the end of 3 years, if you assume a tax rate of $30 a thousand, simple interest, whatever, the person owes like 10% of the value of their property. So how come it is that when this property was sold as for a tax deed, that it didn't raise enough money to pay off the thing when it should have, only taken 10% of the money and the other 90% went something else? And I looked at it, and apparently the problem is that all this property sold for $9,000 at the tax sale. In 2021, it was assessed at $33,600. So the problem is they're paying taxes on like 4 times the actual value of this property. So they wound up owning $9,000 in taxes when they should have owned $2,000 in taxes if that's the appropriate amount of money. So, really the problem here is that this property was overassessed and this person couldn't afford the taxes, maybe because the taxes were too high. So I think we need to start looking at this process because, once again, that's the advantage of the spreadsheet I gave you, that once again, if you assume a tax rate of $30 a thousand, which is 3%, the property is not increasing in value, then it takes 7 or 8 years before the accumulated principal and interest amount to 50% of the value of the property. So I don't understand why we can't let the people live there a little bit longer, because you still have quite a bit of money to cover it. And if you assume something slightly different, that's the second part of the spreadsheet I sent you. Let's assume that this property is appreciating 4% a year, so it's worth more every year. Let's also assume that since the city can borrow money at 4%, you only charge these poor individuals who are broke only 6%. Then all of a sudden, you discover it's 14 years before the taxes and interest add up to 50% of the value of it. So I think that you need to change the whole policy to, not seize owner-occupied properties, which this property I'm talking about was. I don't care if you want to seize vacant properties or, industrial land or whatever, but owner-occupied properties, people are hurting. You should not be, number one, seizing the properties until they've had a longer time to pay it off, because it seems like you've got plenty of coverage. And number two, you should not be charging them a 10% penalty, which is over 3 years extra taxes on top of the 14% interest. So I don't think you should put this money in that fund. I think you should return half of it and put the rest in the general fund. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schweiker. Councilor Kretovic.
Thank you, Mr. Schweiker. Does your recommendation take into consideration the difference between somebody's primary home versus somebody's secondary home?
Well, I think I would count that as their residence. So I think a secondary home where they're not living in there full time would, be subject to, that's a financial thing. That's not talking about someone's home.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Schweiker? Seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Schweiker. Would anyone else like to testify on this item? All right, seeing none, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Madam City Clerk, item 28C.
It's a report from the Recreation and Parks Advisory Committee on recommended non-ordinance-based fees and charges.
Mr. City Manager.
Members of the council, the Recreation and Parks Advisory Committee has made recommendations on changes to some of the rates, and you can see on the page 2 of that report the increase. You could see the current fees for resident and non-resident, and the new proposed fee for resident and non-resident changing. So everything from the use of the community centers to staff time for hours after special events, to the drop-in rates for basketball, pickleball, futsal. Approved we estimate the additional $15,000 in revenue for fiscal year 25 for the budget. And you can see these fee increases were not included in the budget that you approved. So this would be additional $15,000, which you could decide to use on something that relates to recreation or anything else you wanted to use.
Thank you, Mr. Rispel. Any questions for the city manager? Councilor Horn.
We're just curious why the exercise rooms dropped 50% in rate.
Mr. Gill?
Welcome, Mr. Gill.
Good evening, Mayor, members of City Council. Great question. Back in September 1st of 2022, City Council lowered all the rates. There was a subcommittee of this body to look at the rental rates to increase use. At that time, we did not lower the rates for the exercise rooms. So we have not had a lot of rental opportunities, and that's because the rates were so much higher. So the Recreation and Park Advisory Board looked at, hey, how can we make it all the same or similar for those two size rooms?
Thank you. Councilor McNamara.
Thank you, Your Honor. Can youth and adult residents still buy the punch cards that allow a pickleball game for $2 a game instead of $3?
Yes, we're going to go to an electronic version of that, so it's like a little swipe card, like when you go to the gym, so you can do that. And then we're also going to be able to do the same thing in the Pennacook Community Center for the seniors. When they have their card, they'll be able to swipe in, so that will continue.
Follow up?
Is that only for Concord residents?
Nope,
That swipe card?
nope, it's for anybody, it's prorated for the resident rate versus the non-resident rate.
Non-resident.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilor Brown.
Yes. How many non-resident pool passes were sold last year?
127.
27. Follow-up?
Follow up?
How many have been sold so far this year?
As of this morning, it was 47, and 4 city employees have picked up their their employee cards.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Usually the next heat wave will drive that number a little bit. People say, what are my options? So,
I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone who'd like to testify on item 28C? Mr. Schweiker. Welcome back.
Why, thank you. I saw that one of the items in this is rental of the West Street Ward House. I mean, that's a whole thing, and you're renting it for the same price as a room. But at the same time, you know, how much are you getting in rentals for the West Street Ward House as compared to how much it keeps to, you know, keep that place operating? I was understood that it was going to be disposed of after we opened the, you know, community center on the Heights, and apparently the city still owns it. And I'm wondering if we're making enough money renting it, but what may be a better idea would be to sell it with a historic preservation easement so it doesn't get torn down by certain people and be done with the expense to it, and the revenue is purely nominal. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Schweiker? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Schweiker. Would anyone else like to testify on this item? Seeing none, I'll declare the public hearing on item 28C closed. And this moves us to our public to our public action, to our actions phase, correct? Correct. There's a miswritten headline. All right, on mine. It is, okay. No, it isn't. All right. Madam City Clerk, you're ready.
Number 29, action on a resolution appropriating the sum of $11,956.94 in the Police Department Ballistic Vest Replacement Program for the purchase of vests and accepting the sum of $11,956.94 in unmatched grant funds.
Move approval.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Is there a discussion? Seeing none, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favor,
Your
please.
Honor, excuse me, Your Honor.
I'm sorry.
Yes,
Counsel.
I'm recusing myself as I have an employee, a spouse who is employed.
Thank you,
by the
Councilor
city.
Brown. Thank you very much. All those in favor of the motion as made, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. The motion passes by the required 2/3 majority. Madam City Clerk.
Item 30 is a resolution appropriating the sum of $38,292.10 for management of tax deeded properties and accepting the sum of $38,292.10 from the sale of tax deeded properties for this purpose.
Move approval.
Thank you. Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion passes by the required 2/3 majority. Madam City Clerk, item 31.
A report from the Recreation and Parks Advisory Committee on recommended non-ordinance-based fees and charges.
Move approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Council Fennessy.
Thank you. So I would like to offer perhaps an amendment, but I just want to talk through it first. As some of you may know, then Counselor Champlin and I were on the committee that looked at the rental fees, among other things that we looked at. And, you know, it was less than, I think, 18 months ago. And one of the things that we heard was how people wanted to use the citywide community center, but they felt like the rental rates were too high. And so we made an effort to substantially reduce those rental fees. From my perspective, and I unfortunately did not make the meeting of RPAC where they discussed this, but from my perspective, we haven't given that enough time. And so I would propose that for all of the items related to the community center, that we stick to the rental rates that we had for last year, with the exception of the exercise room, which I believe was really an oversight. We intended to reduce that along with the other ones when we looked at it back in September of 2022.
Is that a motion?
That would be an amendment that I'm offering, yes.
So you're moving an amendment?
Yes.
All right.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Councilor Horn?
Would you consider keeping the non-resident rates slightly raised and keeping the resident rates?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Yes, I was speaking more to the resident rates.
Okay.
So your amendment was specific to the resident rates?
Correct. I apologize for not
All
clarifying.
right, for the community center only? All right, thank you. Councilor Brown?
Yes, I also have an amendment.
We have an amendment on the floor,
Okay.
Councilor. So if you have an amendment subsequently, you may make that.
Okay.
All right? Okay. Did I see Councilor? I thought I saw another hand. Councilor Schultz.
I'll just say, as someone who has benefited from the rates that you changed it, in 2022, it has increased the use, and I think it's totally fair to give it a little bit more time to breathe, and I appreciate the motion.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other comments? I will be voting in favor of the amendment. As Councilor Fessy indicated, he and I served on the committee that looked into this, and also Councilor, who else served on that? I'm trying to remember. Yeah. But anyway, yeah. But anyway, I think that the increased use that has been generated by those reductions for residents has had a very positive benefit to that community, to the neighborhood up on the heights, also to the community at large. And while it would diminish the estimated revenues from that, I think it's worth letting it stand for a while longer. So I will be voting yes on this amendment. All right. Any other discussion? All right. All those.
Excuse me, Your Honor.
Councilor, yes.
Yes, would you restate the motion?
Right. The motion is to keep the resident rates currently in place at the citywide community center at their current levels, with the exception of the exercise room rates. Correct? All right. All those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The amendment passes. The motion passes and the amendment passes. So now the overall, now that has been amended. Councilor Brown.
Yes, I would like to make an amendment or a motion that we increase the non-resident pool pass rate. We have seen the popularity of the splash pad. We are looking at, we pushed out the renovations and maintenance on Garrison Park Pool, but I believe, especially when we look at the flooding that's happening, the cyanobacteria that's going into our public water bodies, we are going to be a draw from other communities to our incredible pools, our beautiful parks. I was at Garrison Park, and Parks and Rec has done an outstanding job. It's incredible. So I think that we need to increase that rate because we're only going to get more people coming. I'd like to see that go up to 150, maybe even 200, depending on how folks feel. But I think we can get more, and I also think that we can increase, and we should increase, the non-resident rate for football games at Memorial Field. We're looking at we need to do serious renovation. There's drainage issues. It shouldn't just fall on taxpayers when we have non-residents also using it. I'd like to see that go up, you know, up to $350 from $320. So I'd like to see the non-resident pool passes, $170, and the football games, non-resident at Memorial Field to $350. So $30 increase for those two items.
All right.
Second?
All right, moved and seconded. All right, just a discussion. Council Fennessy.
Can I ask a question of Mr. Gill related to the football game?
Certainly. Mr. Gill, I'm sorry.
Nope, you got it.
I also have a question to Mr. Gill, Mr. Mayor, when my turn comes.
Sure. Welcome back.
Good evening, Mayor, members of
Council
the council.
Fennessy.
So a question I had was with respect to football games for non-residents, how many of those do we have a year?
It's a handful. It's 3 or 4 probably. It's just to capture more of the cost.
Thank you.
Councilor Keach.
Mr. Gill, can you just talk about the enforcement mechanism of non-resident passes? I mean, are we carding people at the gate as they come through, or how is this accomplished?
Great question. We do have, I think it goes back to 2001, we do have staff at pools that check resident requirements. So anybody who's a resident and wants to use the pool, it's a ID, it's a bill, just common sense. You know, some kids don't have IDs, so it's the neighborhood pool. But if anybody does not have an ID, we do require them to have a non-resident pool pass.
Just a follow-up. So residents are being carded essentially as well? Or
Yes.
Once it's established they're residents, obviously it's not done every day, but
Correct.
everyone's
Yep,
been checked?
absolutely.
Thank you.
Councilor Kretovic.
Thank you, Your Honor. Offhand scenario here. I'm a mom, and I take my kids to the pool, and their buddy that lives up in Boscawen comes with us, and I get carded. Are all of us getting in, or is our Boscawen child getting left out?
As stated in our rules for the pools, residents are allowed to bring up to 4 guests with them as being part of the residence. So if you're bringing the person, you're responsible for that child, then yes, you'll be fine.
So we do have a significant number potentially of non-resident persons that are utilizing our pools for free, not our poo, our pools at no charge at all.
There would be some of those, yes.
Thank you. We have,
You could give us a donation when you come in with.
of which kind, pool or the other?
Financial, please. No more kids.
Thank you.
That's right, no more kids.
Any other questions? Councilor Todd.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Gill, I know it's probably a tough question, but is there any sense as to how much revenue we are expected to get? Let's just pick the pools, based on the increase that you have recommended here.
Had that number, I didn't bring it with me. I think it was $3,000 or $4,000.
Okay, good.
And that's if up until last year, we sold an average of 50 to 60 non-resident pool passes. Going back 20 years, last year was I think was mainly related to the splash pad, and that's continues now because the only aquatics facility is open right now is a splash pad, and we're still having people come in just for that purpose.
Okay, can I do a follow-up?
Yeah, follow-up.
Thank you. So the increase that you have recommended on both of these that were mentioned, the football and the pools, what was the methodology or the thinking behind the amounts that you chose for the increase?
Great question. We brought these, there was actually 2 proposed fees to the Recreation Park Advisory Board, and it was mainly related to the increase in utility costs. That's electric and gas. Those direct costs to these groups for the pools or for the community center. So the conversation was, and it was a robust conversation with our PAC. Some of them even wanted the higher set of fees just because the fees were going up. So it was based on utility cost increase. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Horn.
This wasn't for Mr. Gill, I just wanted to make a suggestion.
Oh, okay. Anybody else have a question for Mr. Gill? No. Thank you, Mr. Gill.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Please.
I'm in favor of raising the rates. I would say 150 for the non-resident pool pass, and then the 350 I'm fine with, and then see how this year, make sure we're not losing any of the passes that we've already sold.
Okay, any other discussion? All right. Seeing no other discussion. I'm sorry, Counselor Schlosser.
But did you want to make an amendment? I mean, did
I
you want to
don't,
change?
I don't know how that worked because she's already,
I see.
Yeah,
she
she
did.
already has an amendment on the floor. Counselor Fennessy.
Can I just clarify what the proposed amendment is at the moment? Because I've heard several different numbers.
I believe that what Counselor Brown is proposing is to increase the non-resident pool pass rate to $170 and the non-resident football game rate to $350. Is that correct?
That is correct, thank you.
So I believe it's a $30
$30 increase, yes.
in each,
Over what's been proposed.
over what's been proposed
Thank
by Parks and Rec, correct. All right, all those in favor of the amendment as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no?
No.
No. I think the ayes have it. Okay. All right. So that's that amendment.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes, Counselor.
But does Counselor Horn want to make a subsequent motion to perhaps have a sunset provision, so it's a year long, or I'm not sure if you wanted to revisit this?
Did you want to make a subsequent motion, Counselor Horn?
For hers?
No, when you, I'm sorry, when you supported, you said, can we reduce the rate a little?
I believe that we've made this amendment, but you know, the measure is open for further amendment if you'd like to.
No, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Counselor Fennessy.
Move approval as the report amended by
Second.
the two motions.
All right.
Second
Moved
that.
and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no?
No.
Okay. The ayes have it. All right. That moves us to reports. Madam City Clerk.
Would you like me to read the two
Yes.
reports together?
Yep.
Okay. So there are two reports listed under this section of both titles since they are relevant to the same topic. The first item is a report from the fire chief on behalf of the Public Safety Board in response to a City Council referral from the Public Safety Board in regards to a communication from Ari Pollock requesting consideration be made to relocate a bus stop now located between 214 and 220 North Main Street in Concord. There is also a report from the transportation engineer on behalf of TPAC in response to that same referral.
Chair recognizes Councilor Grady Sexton.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to move that we accept both committee reports and direct the city staff to act on the Public Safety Advisory Board's report.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Councilor Brown.
Oh, do you want to?
Sure, if I, may
Speak
I?
to the motion? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
thank you.
Please.
So I thought I would just start with a little bit of history and a bit of a timeline. In 2021, there were two bus stops that were consolidated and moved to a location outside of the parking lot of the Gallagher Law Firm on North Main Street. And back in January, TPAC considered a request from the Gallagher Law Firm through attorney Ari Pollock that we relocate that new location of a bus stop. TPAC rejected the proposal and sent it back to this body. And prior to this body acting on that report, attorney Pollock had shared that he was not informed of the TPAC meeting. He had some additional information that he would have liked to have shared. And so this full council sent the same item back to TPAC as well as to the Public Safety Advisory Board to look at the issue and for TPAC to revisit it as well. TPAC, as you can see from the report, once again met and determined that they would not be interested in moving the bus stop and that this was in fact the best location for the bus stop. However, the Public Safety Advisory Board looked at this issue through a singular lens of what's in the best interest of the public safety and voted with an 8-1 vote to move the bus stop after meeting and hearing from Representative Attorney Pollock from Gallagher Law Firm. Attorney Pollock had explained to the Public Safety Advisory Board that the location of the bus stop is located between two very busy entrances to the parking lot of the law firm, with little space on the sidewalk for those who are waiting for the bus stop to be able to congregate. So what is happening is that people are instead congregating either inside the parking lot or sort of spilling over into the entryways of the Gallagher Law Firm, and that there have been numerous near misses where people waiting for the bus stop have almost been hit by vehicles that were either entering or exiting the lot. I think one of the things that had driven FPAC, please correct me if I'm wrong, was just sort of the data that says that there was not necessarily a problem, but I think what the Public Safety Advisory Board looked at was the fact that near misses of pedestrians being hit by vehicles are not captured in the data, because it's very rare that somebody would call the police and report that they had almost hit a pedestrian or had almost been hit. So I think the Public Safety Advisory Board overall found that there was a very compelling argument that this is a dangerous location for those that are waiting for the bus. I personally was grateful for the Gallagher Law Firm for flagging this issue, but also for suggesting an alternate space right outside of their property that the bus stop might be located on. However, the Public Safety Advisory Board didn't feel it was our purview to recommend a specific location, only to let the council know that we felt that the current location is not one that is safe for a bus stop. So with that, I would urge my fellow councilors to vote to send this back to city staff to determine an alternate location that is safer.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Brown.
Yes, so this actually came to TPAC first, and I was really impressed by the amount of work that city staff put into this. I think it was 9 different locations that they looked at, and they had a matrix of all the different things they considered. And I think Councilor Foote was also there. There might have been 8 different items that they considered, because they considered pedestrians, they considered the bus having this, being able to pull over safely the traffic that was coming, because pedestrians, but there's also drivers, people getting on and off the bus. And we considered each of the 9 alternate locations, and really the best spot is exactly where it was. And then when I read the Public Safety Board minutes, I realized that the Public Safety Board did not have access to that information and we really deliberated. We pulled it up on the screen, we looked at where it was, and I didn't see any data. I didn't see that the Public Safety Board had looked at that data. And I was reading comments by Chief Hebert and Chief Osgood that the people who were congregating were not there for a bus stop. Terry Page, who is the Public Transportation Director for CAT, she said most of the people who were using that were from Pennacook. And so they weren't people going to the Friendly Kitchen. Mr. Pollock came back and shared his photos with us. We again looked at it. We talked about, let's look at different locations and what those needs would be, the ADA compliance, and we still came up with the same, this is really in the safest spot for everyone concerned. But also, Councilor Foote and I went out over the weekend, and we walked that area, and we looked at where the proposed location would be. He brought his tape measure. We walked down Ferry Street, because that's where, I think it was Chief Osgood or Chief Hebert had said that's where they thought people were coming from. We did see some questionable activity, and it was from behind Cumberland Farms, and then they walked the length of the sidewalk. We also noticed that the front entrance, and this is where TPAC said, well, the only other best spot would be right in front of their entryway. And that doorway says, please use other door. And it is obviously not a used front entrance. One of the columns had damage at the bottom, just age, not vandalism. But it's something that could be inviting if people were vagrants and here was an empty stoop that clearly nobody is going into and out of. I think maybe the bus stop actually keeps the vandalism at bay because you have people getting on and off that are not just hanging out in that area, so I think it might actually make it safer. I noticed in the public safety report, the rest of the conversation was about businesses that were experiencing vandalism that had nothing to do with a bus stop. So I feel like the expense to taxpayers to move a bus stop when it really is in the best area. And Terry Page said, you know what, we'll talk to the people who get on the bus, and about who they're encountering and just really working with the people in that area. So I really, I don't think it would be a good use of taxpayer funds to move the bus stop to a location where it is less safe.
Councilor Keach.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm going to vote in favor of this motion by Councilors Amanda Grady Sexton. This truly is a public safety issue. I've got a fistful of complaints from the Concord Police Department. That bus stop where it is located now is a complete magnet and is causing a lot of problems. If you go to the current CAT website, CAT website, it shows the bus stops in their old locations, one south and one north of the current location, so their map isn't even current. And I've been unable to find out any history as to why that bus stop was relocated where it was. Apparently no thought went into it whatsoever, and I think we can see the outcome now, which is a problem. And I think we'd be neglectful not to respond to a good neighbor, a good business who raised an issue, wants us to address it, and just digging in because of engineering data or lack of data. But it's not a data issue, it's a public safety issue.
Councilor Kretovic.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Councilor Keach, for those comments, and Councilor Amanda Grady Sexton for yours as well. This is a business that came to us with a safety issue. They're having a problem at the front of their location because of people that are congregating there. I see this as we've provided a space for legal loitering because there's a bus stop there. When I look at the report in the matrix that was given to us by TPEC, which I truly appreciate all the work that was put into it, the difference between a 12-foot shoulder and an 8-foot shoulder in that location is paint on the road. The cost is paint on the road. That's $6. The other thing that was up for consideration here is the removal of parking, which got a negative evaluation, but the parking could simply move to in front of the location of Gallagher, Callahan, and Gartrell, and the space that was the no parking could be turned over for those spaces so that it's a net loss. I think ultimately as a council, we need to respect the fact that this is a public safety issue beyond the fact of a bus transportation issue, of which in their own report they said it's 11 people per day get on the bus, but it is not 11 people per day that are congregating at this legal loitering spot. Thank you.
Councilor McNamara.
My question had to do with the parking, and Councilor Kretovic answered that. Another thing I was thinking of is that I'm here to listen to my community, and if my community is not feeling safe, I'm not going to just ignore them because of, I don't know, but I think that I will support this because there are people in the community who don't feel safe, who either are there walking to work or are parking in that parking lot.
Thank you. Councilor Kurtz.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. My concerns when looking at the proposed spot at 214, based on the matrix, were the parking, which has been spoken to, and the lack of an ADA accessible pad. But am I correct in assuming that we would not ever put a bus stop somewhere without creating ADA accessibility?
Mr. City Manager.
Mr. City Manager.
We would make sure that we could do it, right? Which is why when we you had an interesting dynamic when you're trying to do downtown. With the old downtown, it was very difficult to find the spots. That's why you end up designing the spaces so that it could work, because people have to be able to get on and off the bus. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't object to redirecting this to city staff to identify the best spot for it. I would just say that I think the public safety issue of folks loitering and misbehaving at bus stops is not going to be solved simply by moving this. So I'd like us to continue looking at how we support through lighting, signage, enforcement, whatever the appropriate things may be. I think we need to continue looking at how we keep users of our public transportation system and the neighboring businesses feeling safe in doing so.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Schlosser.
So I would just like to ask Councilor Kretovic to reflect on the language of legal loitering, because I don't think that waiting for the bus should be termed as legal loitering. I think it's sort of inflammatory, and it really focuses our attention on the wrong issue. So
We should ask Google, because that's what Google calls it.
Councilor.
We should I just ask us to be more respectful of those people who use the bus line.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Fennessy.
Thank you. I won't present any numbers. There's lots of data. Everybody's seen that. What I will just say is, as someone who practices law, I've been to that office a number of times. 5 years ago, I would go there and the door was open. Anybody could walk in. It was a very inviting place. I had to go there for a meeting, a statewide group had a meeting there, and I couldn't get in. I'm like, why does a business have its doors locked? It seemed crazy to me. So I asked the question of Mr. Pollock, because I happen to know him. I said, why are the doors locked? And he explained to me exactly the reason, because of all of the issues that they've had. If one of our businesses has to lock their doors because of public safety issues, I think we need to listen.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Sexton.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd just like to say, in following up about the use of language, I think we need to be just as concerned about the actions that are occurring as we are about the use of our language. And I think that the term legal loitering, when people are loitering, and I think that, and they're causing fear in a particular area, that I think it's fair to use the terminology to characterize it that way.
Any other discussion? Councilor Sickle.
I just want to say that it doesn't make sense to refer it to our city leaders or city staff to give our suggestion where they think it's safer. But I did say that where they suggested might not be a safer place because of the two ways. It's one-way traffic both ways. But I would love to see what the city has for suggestion, where is the best place.
Thank you. Councilor Foote.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. I have the distinct privilege to serve on both TPAC and the Public Safety Board, and I was the dissenting vote.
You're welcome.
I was the dissenting vote when I went before the Public Safety Board, because I asked a number of questions, and to date, none of them have been answered. I understand Councilor Keach now has a handful of reports from the police department. I wasn't aware of that and have not observed those, and I think that public safety is not only, police involved, but it's also us as a community to make sure that we locate things in the best possible location. And I was also at the first TPAC meeting when it was unanimous that the location should remain where it is. I went out and measured, as Councilor Brown said, and where the proposed bus stop is, it's not as simple as restriping. Otherwise, we're reducing the travel lanes on the roadway. So as I see it, a bus would not be able to stop at the proposed location without modifications to the granite curbing and some sort of ADA platform. And also, where it's existing at the intersection, there's in excess of 10 feet where the bus can pull off. When the light turns, signals forward, the bus can easily pull out into the travel lane with no loss of parking. If it's moved back to where it's being proposed, then the bus would pull in. The bus would be as striped today. The bus would be in the travel lane, and then and then we would also necessitate losing another parking spots. We'd lose 2 parking spots adjacent to the vacant building. And I just think that, I listened to both groups, and I think TPAC made an excellent recommendation. I think the Public Safety Board, I think they mean well, but I'll defend the engineering community. We spent a lot of time in the first meeting coming up with a location that we did. It was thoughtful, and it's the safer alternative. And we're hearing, concerns relative to loitering, but really what we're there for is safety of people and vehicles, where I come from. And if there's loitering everywhere in Concord. And I'm going to go off on this a little bit because I did walk behind the buildings, and I think this is really endemic of where we are. We have over 60 agencies, federal, state, municipal, and nonprofits working on this homeless issue that we have. We can recognize that much of this is attributed to that. And so we have over 60 agencies. We don't know how many homeless there are, and we're spending millions of dollars. So it's nice to have this public bus stop issue come before us, but really it's a much larger issue. Until we get our hands wrapped around that, we can be having these arguments every single month. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Keach.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just for the record, I believe that the police data was presented to TPAC, and perhaps TPAC didn't consider it in the public safety context because they're more data-driven about numbers and so forth. But to your point, Councilor, I agree. The problem of homelessness and all the problems that come with it is massive. It's certainly a lot more than we're going to solve tonight. But what we're here tonight to solve is one business's problem and a simple solution to make that business and the clients that patronize that business safer is to address that bus stop issue. So no, we're not going to solve homelessness tonight, but we may solve one problem for one business, and I think that's a good start.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other? Councilor Grady, second.
And I would just like to add to Councillor Keeshan, this also is about the protection of the people who are waiting for the bus. And it's not safe to have a bus stop in between 2 driveways. I think it's as simple as that. So I stand by our remarks, and I hope that, and again, I want to remind people this is not a motion to move the bus stop to the proposed alternate location. It's to send it back to city staff to determine a location. This is just to move it from where it is currently.
Councilor Fennessy.
Thank you. I just have kind of a different concern that I don't think TPAC, and I'm not sure public safety looked at, but if there's only 11 people getting on this bus an entire day at this stop, do we even need a stop there? Should we be thinking about some better location for people to jump on? So I would suggest if this goes back to city staff, that should be part of the conversation, because 11 people is not a lot of people for an entire day in one location. It certainly sounds like there's a lot more than 11 people that are congregating in this area.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Brown.
Yes, so on TPAC, I did look at that data. Mr. Pollack asked me to hand it back, but I looked at it, and it wasn't related to the bus stop. It was complaints about people, about vandalism. There was someone sleeping in the bushes. Somebody had their car damaged. That's not related to the bus stop. That's related to this issue of homelessness. Councilor Foote and I walked down Ferry Road, and you can see people that are hanging out along the rail lines, and they're walking up behind businesses. Actually, that business is more protected than others. So I think because of the public activity of the bus, because of their fencing along the back, they're probably seeing less. I would have liked to have seen the data on what all of Main Street is encountering. And we can look back at public safety. There were no referrals in 2023. So, this bus stop was there and had been there. So this is not a bus stop issue. And I feel like we would be moving the bus stop, patting ourselves on the back and saying we did a good thing, when in fact, we're not really addressing the real issue. We need to get more people using the bus because we want to reduce our traffic. We want to be more sustainable. So I want to see more people using the bus. And I think if we can encourage more people to use the bus, it will be safer, because when you have more foot traffic, you're going to deter those that activity where they prefer to be behind Cumberland Farms and meet people. They don't want to be, folks who are doing criminal acts don't want to be in a public area doing it. So having a bus stop in a safe location, those reports were not about a bus. I think it was Chief Osgood who said that there was no crash data related to this. In fact, when Mr. Pollock came to the TPAC meeting, he said, hey, I saw that there were cop cars there. I don't know what was going on. And our traffic engineer said, oh, I can tell you, it was people waiting for the bus. And it was a parent who took her young children. She had her older children wait at the bus stop while she went to get some food from the gas station, which is across the street. And people only saw the children waiting for the bus stop. They thought they were alone, when in fact the parent was directly across the street. That's what the police call was for. It wasn't because of a traffic incident. It wasn't because of a near miss. I think the safety of the bus moving out of a travel lane ensures that pedestrians are safer. And we had somebody on our committee who rides his bike religiously. You will see him, he has the big cart in front of his bike where he transports his, infant, now elementary school kids. And he said that he likes that bus stop because it's by a light, so he can anticipate it. So it's not only safe for pedestrians and drivers, it's safe for our cyclists too. And those are things that I think we need to consider. We only heard from Mr. Pollock. This is a big move. We're moving a bus stop. I would hope that we would hear from more than just one business, one place, one location. I think this is, what is the expense of this? Have we thought about that? We just passed a budget. We're increasing taxes. Is this absolutely necessary? Before we do something like this, I want to poll all of Main Street. I want to talk to bus riders. Is this necessary?
Thank you, Counselor. Any other comments? Counselor Todd.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to comment that I think Counselor Foote really spoke very eloquently about this situation. I agree with what he said. I also agree with Counselor Kurtz. I mean, I'm willing to, support the motion and send this for a study, and be interesting to see what kind of information we get back. I think there are certainly some costs that are going to be associated with moving the stop. And I think also, based on Councillor Fennessy's story, I think it would be interesting to see that if in fact the stop gets moved, will Gallagher actually unlock their doors or not? That's a question. So in other words, pointing to, again, what Councillor Kurtz said, I think this is a bigger issue that still needs some attention and some examination. And I'd be willing to assist with that, but I'd be nice to see some kind of additional efforts in that regard to support our downtown Main Street businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Kurtz.
Yes, I agree with Councillor Todd, and I would just also ask that city staff speak to Terry Page, see if we can get information about the riders, to Councillor Fennessy's point of where would be actually an ideal, well-used, safe, well-lit location for all of our bus stops, but we're talking about this one right now. And yeah, anecdotally, I don't know if they'll be able to unlock their doors. They're sadly not the only business who has taken to having to lock their spaces. As Councillor Foote said, I'm glad that we're having a conversation. I hope the conversation about the bigger public safety issues continues in earnest.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Foote.
Great point. And we're focused on Mr. Pollock, and I empathize with him, just as though I empathize with everybody on that quarter, because I have spoken with other business owners throughout that quarter, and they all experience the same type of activities. So I think this is a very good conversation, and I like what Councillor Todd said about sending it and having city staff review it. I think they're more than capable. I think that's a good intent. And
thank you, Counselor.
Thank you. If I could just make one broad point, and that's, I live on Hills Ave. I live downtown, and I can tell you, as a resident of downtown, I honestly feel I'm held hostage by the homeless population, okay? And that's not to blame them or demonize them as a group, but the idea of coexisting is not where it's at now. And between the residents and the businesses, there's a level of frustration, and it's hitting a bubbling point. And to your point, Counselor, I think you're going to hear rhetoric and language that is probably not fair and not kind, not compassionate, but it goes to the level of frustration. And we either deal with that frustration or we deal with the consequences. And I think by doing what we're doing tonight, we're doing a small part, but we're making some progress. And I think that's an important message to send to the community.
All right, thank you, Counselor. Counselor Grady Sexton.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I'd like to get to the
That's fine. I just do want to say that I want to make sure that the Gallagher Law Firm is not misrepresented here. They are not saying that this is not an issue to them about the homelessness issue. This is an issue about public safety for people who are repeatedly almost getting hit when waiting for a bus stop. And so I want to go back. They've been good neighbors and have offered a space right down to the 50 feet away on their same location of their property. So I do want to make sure that that is clear, that this is about a bus stop and public safety for the people waiting for the bus stop and not about the larger homeless issue, and that they've been great community members.
Thank you, Counselor.
Can I call
Counselor,
the question?
you may call the question. All right, it's a non-debatable motion. I will just say I will be voting in favor of this motion for the reasons that Counselor Grady Sexton just outlined. Counselor?
An amendment?
The question has been moved.
Okay,
And
so
that's
you
a
can't do
non-debatable motion, and we have to move forward on the vote. All right, all those in favor of the motion?
Could you repeat?
Yes.
I don't
Yes.
know what the question is.
All right, the motion is, and I will ask the city clerk to correct me if I'm wrong. The motion is to accept the two committee reports and direct city staff to act upon the recommendation of the Public Safety Advisory Board and look for another location. That's it, right?
To accept or to look for another.
It's to accept the two reports.
Okay.
And to direct city staff to identify, work on identifying another location for the bus stop.
Not to go with the one they proposed.
No, just to look for another location, right? Am I correct?
Perfect.
Good to know the mind's still working. All right. You've heard the motion repeated. All those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by...
Roll call, Your Honor.
Roll call has been requested, so we will conduct a roll call. That was requested by Councilor Kretovic?
Brown.
Councilor Brown. All right. Madam City Clerk?
Counselor Brown?
No.
Mayor Champlin?
Yes.
Counselor Fennessy?
Yes.
Counselor Foote?
Yes.
Counselor Grady Sexton?
Yes.
Counselor Horn?
No.
Counselor Keach?
Yes.
Counselor Kretovic?
Yes.
Counselor Kurtz?
Yes.
Counselor McLaughlin?
Yes.
Counselor McNamara?
Yes.
Counselor Schlosser?
No.
Counselor Schultz?
Yes.
Counselor Sekou?
Yes.
Counselor Todd?
Yes.
So the motion passes 12-3.
Very good, thank you. Our next items of business is we have our consideration of items pulled from the consent agenda. Madam City Clerk, item 21.
This item was pulled from the consent agenda by Counselor Brown. It's a resolution establishing a grants for special events reserve and authorizing the use of $20,000 in the general fund as a transfer out to trust for this purpose.
Thank you. Councilor Brown, would you like to speak to your...
Yes, thank you. So I noticed in this report that it was dated May 1st. For this $20,000, the remainder of which we had approved last budget cycle, to then go into a special events reserve. So this report was written before we approved the $150,000 for the events. So rather than increase that to $170,000 for events, I'm making a motion to create a second or a separate reserve for sustainability. Our goal is to achieve 50% renewable resources by 2030. That's 6 years away. During our budget cycle, we talked about bike racks that were missing at different locations. I see this $20,000 as something that we could use to pay for items that would help us achieve those sustainability goals on a small scale. I was at Garrison Park. There isn't a bike rack there. Beaver Meadow doesn't have a bike rack, but people have biked there. So I think we can do something like that. We could also use that $20,000 to restore water fountains at our park. In 2021, I collected 2 recycle bins of plastic water bottles from Keach. It was after an event. If our parks have working water fountains, we can encourage the park users to refill, and that's kind of an easy thing. So I'd like us to consider, events are great, but using these funds to achieve sustainability goals, and having the Energy and Environment Advisory Committee review and suggest uses for this fund.
Okay, thank you, Councilor. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Discussion. Mr. City Manager, did you have something in mind for this money?
Well, the idea here is that you have $20,000 that if you don't act on it at this meeting, it just goes to surplus, which is fine. That's not a problem. You can just let it go to surplus. But when we look at events, one of the things that I found when you City Council appropriated the original $150,000 last year is that there's a lot of lead time, and a lot of you have been involved in events over your careers, and there's a lot of lead time to put together a program or an event, or whether it's scheduling, and I'm just talking events, but it could be anything, any type of initiative like this. It takes a lot of lead time. So one of the things that I found in trying to figure out how to use that $150,000 you originally put together was that the folks who wanted to look at it and do it, they were starting, they're starting right from scratch. And they were, because we never had anything really like this, and they were trying to figure out, okay, what do I have to put together? And I was trying to encourage folks to, come up with matching funds on projects, get sponsorships and things like that, and that all takes a lot of time for people to do. So if you had $20,000 available, actually, let me step back. If you had this fund, this reserve set up available, with any amount of money that you put into it, we could work with people if you want to continue to do projects. Now, at this time, when we, as Councilor Bunce said, when we put this together, there was no thought of another $150,000 coming around. This was all there was. So with these dollars, so that was the idea of a reserve fund. Have some seed money that you can use to work with different people to start programs, to start doing events, if you're going to do this on a regular basis. If you're, regarding this specifically $20,000 itself, my thoughts were that this just goes into a reserve fund. It does not give me the authority to spend it, right? What it does is it stays in that fund, then I would come back with a proposal to you during the year, but I don't have the time to do that if it just goes to surplus. There's no money to come back with you to suggest. And the proposal that I was going to come forward was, we had a program called a community program up at the community center. But it was only for 2 months. Worked really well, had some bugs in the beginning, but it required a lot of assistance from volunteers. And finally, that all came together. It worked really well, didn't spend all the money. That's why we have some of the dollars left over. And so what I'd like to do is, if we ran that program from, say, November through the end of April, a longer period of time, as a true long-term trial program, it would cost about $20,000. Use the money on that. Therefore, and for the most part, it's the kids on the heights who will be using it. So if you're in ward, if you're in your guys' wards, this is your money. Okay, that was going to be my proposal, but the city council have to approve it. And then what would happen if it really works, and it like I think it will, and it all stays together, then in next year's fiscal year 26 budget, I would propose that this become a regular part of the budget. It would not be this, do we have money, don't we have money? It would be there, the kids would know that the programs would be there, would be able to schedule everything, and it would work out that way. That was the plan. But, obviously there's some steps that need to be taken here. The best part of this plan is that it doesn't cost the taxpayers any money. You do not have to raise taxes to make this happen. You already have these dollars in place. You've already raised these dollars. It's just a matter of appropriating them to be used in a certain way.
Councilor Sick.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'm sorry.
No worries. Thank you, Your Honor, and thank you, City Manager. And the only reason I second it, because I was confused about the 20,000, what that will be. And to open this conversation so that people can be enlightened, personally me, what that 20,000 will be done. Is it going to be added to the 150 to make it 170 for this? But I love how you said we are going to ask organizations to either match or to work, like there is a solid plan on what that will be done, and that is very, very helpful.
It is a unique piece to this, too, is that all those other dollars, when all those other dollars were distributed, there was matches associated with that, whether it's volunteers or cash. This money stays with the city. We're not writing a check to the community program or any other type of program. This stays with the city to cover materials costs and staffing costs to cover those programs. So that's where, if I could just write a check and give it to the community, .org, I could write that check, you wouldn't have to deal with this issue. But it stays with if you want it to stay with the city so that we have it available, you need to approve creating it into a reserve fund. Then I'll come back and I'll say, I've got the program together, this is how it's going to work, will you allow us to use this $20,000 on the program?
And for the follow-up, because that's how the other money were used, especially the Friends of Kitch Park one, when they were allocated, they were my understanding, they were at the Park and Rec. It still stays there, but we are using it for the common good of the community.
Right, it stays up on the heights.
That's good. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Councilor Todd.
Thank you, Your Honor. I look at this, as the city manager just described it, as a way to create longevity for this program, which I fully support. I think it's an excellent program. I think it was a great concept that we had last year to devise this. I think continuing it this year is a great decision. So I view this as a way to kind of make this permanent. So I'm going to support, the creation of the fund.
And I would come back with a report saying, here's the results of what you're doing. This is why I do or do not recommend it in the fiscal year 26 budget.
I know we're not actually discussing the community fund now, but I'm just going to put a plug in like I did the last time I discussed this, and really push for a much smaller version at the Pennacook Community Center of the same program.
Would love to do it.
Sure. Councilor Kretovic.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm not going to support the motion that sits on the table, but agree with Councilor Todd. I also don't want to dismiss the idea that Councilor Brown has brought forward. I kind of prefer that things get vetted through their committees before they come to us. And if there's a sustainability initiative that should be brought to this board, it should really come through the whole committee of the Energy and Advisory Board. And I would ask that she take that back to them.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Brown.
Thank you. Thank you for that. That's a great suggestion. Mr. City Manager, if the Energy and Environment Committee is meeting in 2 weeks, if we discuss and we say, you know what, yeah, we can come up with a whole host of projects that would further our sustainability goals, is that something that, as a committee, we could submit a report and say, it's going to cost about $20,000. Could they apply it to this fund or to the event fund? The reason I was recommending a separate fund is that this looked like it was for events only and not for sustainable projects.
This is just for events only.
Follow-up?
Follow-up.
Is that something that we could do? The Energy and Environment Committee could come back and say, we'd like to see these projects go forward.
Sure, man. But I think it would be coming back to it wouldn't be coming to me, it would be coming to the council, and the council would look at that. So if you had asked me 10 minutes ago, say, hey, you had $15,000 in fees, you could have used those $15,000 for bike racks and you would have been done. But we reduced all those dollars, now you don't have those revenues. So you'd have to identify a revenue source, something other than what you've just appropriated for taxes. It'd have to be another source. That's why I think a lot of these things, it'd be nice to have to be some outside sponsorship, outside dollars. So, for example, when we did the Color and Light program for $150,000 that is going to be used at the Capital Center for the Arts, there's another $50,000 coming into that program. So now you take the 50 and you got 100. So that was the whole idea. Now it's up to the council if this $150,000 that you just appropriated, that the mayor put together for the arts and events, could you use a portion of that? That's all up to you about how you, because I think as the councilor suggested, you got to write some rules on how this can be spent and how it gets used and whatnot. You could expand the usability of what you want to do, but that's all up to the 15 of you, not to me.
Okay.
No, I just want to say, thank you, Your Honor. I want to say I'm grateful to see that the 150 is going next year as well, and I don't know what will come for the years to come, but we all agree that it was a success thing to do.
Thank you, Mayor
in the
Pro Tem.
Heights.
All right. The motion on the floor is to redirect the $20,000 for sustainability efforts. I am going to vote against the motion. I think that the city manager has presented an excellent plan for the use of this money with the promise that, if the community program is successful, it could be integrated into city programming. I think that's an admirable goal. So I will be voting against the motion.
And expanded to Pennacook.
And expanded to Pennacook. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. City.
And I get it in the minutes.
Which, by the way, thank you, and I did write that down here as a note. All right.
Clarification? I'm sorry. So is the 20,000, is this for the community program? And is it also including Pennacook?
Yeah, go ahead.
If you vote for this, all you're doing is voting to put it into the reserve. Then I would come, all you're doing is put it in the reserve. Then I come back with a report that says, I would like to take, think of it as any of your reserves. Then I'd come back and say, I'd like to use $20,000 in that reserve for this purpose, for the community program. You would vote on that. But there's some work I need to do with the Friends, and to make sure everything's all together, that it's going to work with the timeframes. I want to be able to explain what it's going to be, and then say, okay, I'd ask you to spend this $20,000 on this program. And then you take a vote on that. So it's really a two-step process. I would just go ahead and do it myself, but the finance director won't let me spend the money out of the reserve without coming back. He already told me. So I have to go this route. So I know it seems inefficient, but for the auditors and everybody else, this is the way to do it.
All right, for clarification, the motion on the floor is not to approve the resolution creating the Special Events Reserve Fund. It is Councilor Brown's motion to amend and to direct the funds to her idea for a sustainability fund. All right, that is the motion. If you're in favor of Councilor Brown's motion, you would vote yes. If you're not, you would vote no. Councilor Brown.
I just want to clarify that it's not coming to me. I envision that it would be going to, just as the city manager said, to the city to hold, and then, the Energy and Environment Committee would be submitting ideas forward. So it's not, Councilor Brown's, and it's going to be, yeah, I know, no. It sounds good, it sounds good, but that's not what I was going for.
All right, so are we clear on the motion? We are, we still would have to, after this vote, we still would have to vote on creating the reserve. All right, all those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no?
No.
All right, the motion fails.
To accept the report and create the reserve fund for special events.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no?
No.
All right, ayes have it. Madam City Clerk, item 25.
This was also pulled from consent by Councilor Brown. Mayor Champlin's proposed reappointments to the Energy and Environment Advisory Committee.
Thank you. Councilor Brown.
Yes, I would just like to point out that one of our fantastic members, Jennifer Galbraith, has submitted her resignation. She will be leaving. So I just wanted to make that correction.
All right, so you basically, are you moving to
Exclude her or strike her name.
strike her name from
appointments.
the
Yep.
appointees? Okay. This is because of a business conflict?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No, opposed, no? All right, ayes have it. Now we'll go to, I'll entertain a motion for the original proposed reappointments.
So moved.
Moved and seconded, all right. All those in favor of the appointments as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Madam City Clerk, this moves us to a suspense item, suspense 1.
You just first need a motion to
Suspend the rules.
Suspend the rules. Yes.
Motion to
Thank you
suspend
very
the
much.
rules.
I will entertain a
Second.
motion. Moved by Counselor Fennessy,
Second.
seconded by Counselor Todd. All right, the motion is to suspend the rules in order to take up the suspense item. All those in favor of suspending the rules, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it by the required two-thirds majority. Madam City Clerk.
The item is a resolution approving the Concord Community Power Electric Aggregation Plan.
Mr. City Manager.
Honorary members of the council, so on June 5th, the PUC issued, earlier than we thought, the approval of the City of Concord's request for plan approval for member services aggregation with the Community Power of New Hampshire. So Community Power will set the utility rates at the end of June for an October launch period. At that date, Community Power will procure power on behalf of the City of Concord. Any point prior to August 12th, now your council meeting is on August 12th, so prior to that date, the city may elect to delay a launch of that program for the city residents. We do not expect to launch the program without offering a lower default energy rate than utilities at the start, so that's for Unitil and Eversource. If the rates are agreeable, the ratepayers are expected to get a mailer on June the third or fourth week of August, at least one public meeting in early September, and an official launch on October 1st. So essentially, by you approving this, which is what the steps you all which was laid out when you decided to go down this road, which is a good road. You said that when it came back, that you need to technically take a vote, approve it, and then we'll wait and see how it goes, determine whether or not we launch this fall.
Great. Any discussion?
The reason it's on suspense is because otherwise you'd have to wait another whole month, and you'd be in July, and the time frame would be really short for, letting folks know what's going on. So.
Counselor Schultz, sorry.
I just want to make sure I understand this motion. So this is just enabling us to move forward a month sooner, and it is a vote on the plan.
So essentially, think of it as letting Community Power know that Concord's in the program if the rates are acceptable to the community.
Thank you.
Technically, we have already approved the plan, and then the plan went to the PUC, and now the PUC has approved it, so we're accepting the PUC's approval.
Excellent.
That helps. Council Fennessy.
Thank you. I just had a question for the city manager. At this point, what, if any, outreach have we done to the public since our passage of, or our approval of moving forward with Community Power?
It's really going to start in earnest now, because we really needed to have the PUC approval. I mean, it's been talked about, it's been out in the public, but it really hasn't been the outreach that you need. We've had flyers, we've had different pieces of information that go out, but it's going to be really ramped up now, so that, because we know it's real, and the time will come. So,
thank you.
Councilor Kurtz.
Yes, thank you. I will be supporting this. I'm very excited that it's moving forward. Mr. City Manager, I recollect that CPCNH had offered that they would spearhead a lot of the outreach on behalf of municipalities. Is that still happening?
Yes, that's correct.
And that is what will begin in earnest?
And
So we will
right.
take advantage of that resource?
That's exactly right. Yeah,
Wonderful.
They have access to many other programs that have launched in other communities, the pluses and minuses,
Right.
lessons learned. So yes,
Okay,
you're
thank
exactly
you.
right.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Credit.
Do you need a motion to accept this report, Your Honor?
I believe I do. Yes, I do.
A motion to accept the report.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? Ayes have it. Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. This moves us to
Motion to adjourn.
Counselor comments.
Counselor comments, wow.
Boy,
Brain isn't working right.
Councilor Kretovic,
Do you have somewhere to go?
we've spent many hours in this room over the last month. I don't blame you for wanting to get out of here. Are there any councilor comments? Councilor Brown.
Yes, so we have a very exciting couple of things happening. Juneteenth event, Project Story is hosting that Wednesday, June 19th from 5 to 7. And also the The second phase of the Merrimack River Greenway Trail is also happening. I have it in my calendar, but it's on the city manager's newsletter. So I would recommend that folks look at the city manager's newsletter. Oh, sorry, it is Thursday, the 13th at 1 p.m. at 4 Loudon Road.
Thank you. Councilor Kretovic and Councilor Kurtz.
Thank you, Your Honor. There's a couple of items that are coming up from the Concord Historical Society. One is this Thursday. It's the history of Swenson Granite. It's a co-presentation by New Hampshire Historic Preservation, which is on 30 Park Street, as well as Concord Historical Society. Mr. Kurt Swenson is going to be the presenter. We expect it's going to be really well attended if you want to hear the history of what's happening up on Rattlesnake Hill over all the decades and hundreds plus years that granite has grown here in the Granite State. The second one is on June 29th. The Concord Historical Society, along with the Black Heritage Trail, are doing a co-sponsored event. It's a presentation of Frederick Douglass's speech, What the 4th of July Means to the Slave. It's very important in New Hampshire history. Frederick Douglass was from Rochester, New York, but he did travel all across the country in the mid-1800s to help end slavery in many of the states. Here in New Hampshire, he participated in the dedication of the Jonathan Hale statue, who was a champion to end slavery here in the state of New Hampshire, which was done so well in advance of the Emancipation Proclamation. Portions of this speech were given by Frederick Douglass during that time. I'm very excited that Councilor Sekou, Councilor Kurtz, as well as Mayor Champlin are going to be attending and reading portions of that speech, as well as other members of the community. It's a very diverse, equitable group of individuals representing all segments of our populations and all segments of our planets that have been slaved or enslaved at one moment in history. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Kurtz.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. June is Pride Month. I just wanted to wish all Concord residents happy Pride and give a shout out to the Equality Health Center for organizing the first in New Hampshire, I believe, and certainly the first in the city of Concord Pride 5K, which was run last weekend. They sold out and got feedback from organizers that they can, in fact, double the number of registrants next year. So look out for that. It was a joyful event on a gorgeous day. In addition, Capital City Pride has declared July Pride Month in Concord. So follow Capital City Pride on social media to learn all about the events coming up in July around our fair city. Thank you.
Councilor, does that mean I have to wear this shirt next month as well?
I mean, I'm going to be wearing these earrings in perpetuity, so we could have a little contest.
All right, we can do that. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Your Honor, and thank you. I think Councilor Brown already mentioned Juneteenth. There's another celebration at the White Parks that is getting done. A lot of events across our state, so whichever you are comfortable and feel free to attend, please do. It's a great learning, as Councilor Jenny said. I'm so sorry about the name. It's just so.
It's not mine. It's my husband.
Does that mean we're cuckoo
my wife
for
would say,
Kukovich?
my wife would say the same thing. Anyway, so it's about the history. It's about the learning, and it's very important that we look at that way as our community is celebrating this. The other one is Eid al-Adha. The Muslim communities are going to celebrate Eid al-Adha on June 16th, which is really to honor Prophet Ibrahim on his obedience to God that recommended him to sacrifice his son Ismail, which is a very important holiday for Muslims. So if you have any Muslim friends around in our community or somewhere, please wish them Eid al-Adha or Eid Mubarak, whatever is easier. And I want to take this opportunity to say thank you to Councilor Todd for coming with me. We lost a community mother of 4, and Councilor Todd joined me at the ceremony. It was a beautiful support we saw at the church, and it's just heartbreaking. But thanks to Concord Manager for highlighting that as well to just share this sad loss for our community. Last but not least, it's the World Refugee Day or month that there is a celebration coming up soon at the Kitch Park as well.
20th, June 20th.
Yes, June 20th, thank you. So if you are available and free to just come in, as I was mentioning, learn. It's a great event, and Accenture is hosting that event. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Todd.
Thank you, Your Honor. There are two events in June sponsored by the Abbott Downing Historical Society, which present a great opportunity for us to go and visit the part of Concord history, our Concord coaches. The first event is on Saturday, June 22nd at 10 a.m. from 10 to 3 at Tom Prescott's facility on Airport Road. It's called the Tom Prescott Open House. My understanding is that there's going to be a great effort made to assemble the largest number of Concord coaches that have been together in one location for some time. So that sounds like a lot of fun. And then if you miss that, or if you love it so much you want more, you can go on June 29th, Saturday, June 29th, to the Pennacook Historical Society's Open Barn event, where they literally open the barn doors, and the Concord coaches that are stored there and will be out on the lawn for display can be viewed. That event is on Pennacook Street from 1 to 4 on the 29th. So hope to see you there and you enjoy those events.
Thank you. Councilor Horn.
I just want to give a heartfelt congratulations to all of the kids who graduated from Merrimack Valley this past Saturday, including my own daughter, and who will be graduating from Concord this upcoming weekend. Great job to them all.
Thank you. Any other? Councilor Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to reiterate, since this is the City Council meeting in full, that we are currently about halfway through the filing period for people wishing to be on the Republican or Democratic ballots for this September state primary. And open seats from governor to county commissioner. And we have through the 14th, which is this Friday at, I don't know the time, but
5 o'clock p.m. on Friday. Filing period stays open until 5 o'clock.
so if you're interested in running for something, go for it.
I ran into somebody filing this afternoon at the city clerk's office.
It's a busy filing day at City Hall today.
Any other? Councilor Foote.
I have a question for the city manager. Would you be wearing that lanyard if the Celtics were down?
I actually have a friend who works.
Is that your pass to all the games there hanging around?
This is the key to all the doors in the city. So, yeah.
True. Good.
I did notice that too.
Were you done?
I understand. I have to. All right, thank you. I just want to acknowledge, I want to thank Elizabeth Finney, who is a teacher at Broken Ground School and who coordinated the career day at Broken Ground School last week. I was privileged to talk to 3 fifth-grade classes about what it is to be mayor and how to become mayor. I thought it was, I was particularly moved by the girl who thought that the mayor should get free food. I heartily endorse that, and I would like to see that in the 2026 budget. Also, I gave them a multiple choice. I said, what does the mayor get to do? And the 3 choices were: the mayor gets to plant trees, the mayor gets to drive fire engines with the flashing lights and the siren on, or the mayor gets to eat free ice cream at all the ice cream stands in the city. And when I took a show of hands on which was the right answer, eating free ice cream got the most votes. The correct answer was the mayor gets to plant a tree on Arbor Day. But thank you very much to Broken Ground for extending that invitation to me. And thank you for all the kids. There was one boy who said to me when I mentioned that we had a city council meeting coming up, rather a budget hearing, he said, well, my dad goes to all the budget hearings. I said, really? He says, yeah. And I said, why is that? He says, well, he has to. He's the fire chief.
Hey, good.
I said, I know you're filing. So the other thing I want to mention is that today in our consent calendar, we took action, which I'm very, very proud of. Last year's city council we worked on providing 12 hours a week for Second Start to use a room free of charge at the community center for English as a second language instruction. I believe that the number of hours that have been used are in the range of 500 hours for that program, and the MOU that you approved today expands that from 12 hours a week to 15 hours a week because this program had been so successful. So thank you so much for that action. I have met with some of the classes. I have talked to some of the adult students. They are very excited and very proud to be learning English. And thank you to the City Council for your action you took to make that possible.
It's like you are talking about me.
No. Not
Proud to learn English.
I will now entertain a motion to adjourn. Oh, I'm sorry, City Manager.
So, I usually don't say anything, so thank you for.
You're welcome.
So,
I thought that all you wanted to talk about was the Celtics.
Oh, no, that was Jeff. Many times you let me go on and on and on about the city's water system, which is really just a reflection on you and the investments that you've made all the years of making the system what it is. But it isn't just talk. When I think of New England dynasties, I think of Bill Russell and the Celtics and Tom Brady. But I also think of the gentleman in the back, Marco Philippon, with the General Services Department, Water Department. And I'd like to present you with the best 2024 best tasting water in the state of New Hampshire.
Wow.
Children still have a sense of taste. But the reason I say dynasty, and we also won the same award in 2016, 2017, 2019. There were no events in 2021 or 22, but we also won in 23 and 24. So this is truly a dynasty put on by General Services and you. So when I do say you have the best tasting water in the state of New Hampshire, and we're going to be reaching out to our restaurants and letting them know so they could actually market this. And if you think about what's the most important ingredient in breweries, it's water. So there's a reason why this is important to the
So
city.
we want more breweries in Concord.
And we have great water prices.
As long as they pay taxes.
And they pay taxes.
I'm reminded of when during the yacht race where the U.S. Yacht America won the America's Cup, and when the America came across the finish line, Queen Victoria turned to one of her aides and said, who's second? And the aide said, Your Majesty, there is no second. So I think there is no second. Concord is number one, right? Thank you.
It's the perfect amount of non-taste.
Perfect. Thank you. And Marco, thank you for your good work, and Chip, thank you. All right, now I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Moved, seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you, good work. Good night.